Let's be honest, if someone truly values you, you won't have to wonder if they do. But when a guy treats you like an option, only texting when it's convenient, showing up when it suits him, giving you just enough to keep you around, it's time to wake up to the truth. And here's the hard part. The more you make him a priority while he treats you like a backup plan, the more you're reinforcing that dynamic. You're telling him, you can give me less, and I'll still give you more. This isn't about playing games. This is about self-respect, because love isn't proven by how much you tolerate. It's proven by what you no longer accept. So if he's treating you like an option, it's time to shift your energy. Not by begging, explaining, or proving your worth, but by stepping back, setting standards, and acting like the you person you are. If he's not showing up consistently, stop filling in the gaps. That feeling you have, that you're always the one initiating, always the one making plans, always trying to fix the energy between you. That's your body telling you something isn't right. Relationships are meant to be built on mutual effort. If someone really wants to be with you, you won't have to overextend yourself to keep the connection alive. You won't have to keep making excuses for why he's distant, distracted, or inconsistent. He either wants to be there or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, that's your signal to step back, not lean in harder. Here's the thing, when you start matching someone's effort instead of overcompensating for their lack of it, you begin to reclaim your self-respect. You start to break the cycle where you've been giving more than you're receiving. Often when someone treats us like an option, we fall into this trap of thinking that if we just show them how much we care, how available, loyal, and understanding we are, they'll finally see our value. But that's not how it works. People don't value what they didn't have to earn. They don't respect what's always there no matter how little they give back. You have to stop confusing effort with affection. Sometimes we're so busy proving our loyalty that we don't stop to ask if the other person has even earned it. That's not love, that's self-abandonment, and it's incredibly easy to do when you have feelings for someone. You tell yourself you're just being patient, that they're busy, that they'll change. But deep down, you know when the balance is off. You feel it in your gut. You feel the exhaustion of constantly initiating, constantly hoping, constantly waiting for them to step up. That kind of emotional labor becomes draining, and it's not sustainable. Matching effort is not about being cold or calculated. It's about protecting your emotional investment. It's about creating space for someone to actually miss you, to actually notice what life feels like when you're not always reaching out first. When you stop filling in the gaps, you give them the opportunity to show up, or to show their true colors. And if they don't show up, that silence is an answer. It may not be the one you wanted, but it's the truth you needed. It frees you from the illusion that they just needed more time or that you could have done something different. When you step back and stop chasing, you allow your energy to reset. You begin to see things more clearly. You stop being driven by fear, fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear that if you stop giving, they'll forget you. If someone forgets you the moment you stop overextending yourself, they were never really invested in the first place. And you deserve someone who is, someone who meets you halfway, who's excited to talk to you, who remembers the little things, who makes you feel chosen, not tolerated. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept and what you continue to give your energy to. So if he's not showing up, don't rush in to fill the space. Let it be empty, let it reveal whether he steps forward or fades away. Either way, you'll have clarity. And clarity is a gift. It's the first step toward making space for something better, someone better. Someone who won't make you work so hard just to feel seen. Every time you reward inconsistency with your attention, you're teaching someone that they don't need to be consistent to have access to you. Think about that. When someone disappears for days, sends a dry one, word reply after ignoring your messages, or only shows up when it suits them, and you still respond warmly, pick up their calls, or agree to last-minute plans. You're silently saying, "This is okay with me." And once they know that, they have no incentive to change. They know they can come and go as they please, and you'll still be there offering the same energy, the same loyalty, the same interest. That's not love, that's enabling. Inconsistency isn't mysterious or romantic, it's emotional unreliability. And when you ignore that red flag and keep engaging as if everything's fine, you're not just tolerating the behavior, you're reinforcing it. We often convince ourselves that if we just stay kind, patient, and understanding, we can inspire them to step up. But love doesn't grow through tolerance of bad behavior. It grows through mutual effort, consistency, and clear boundaries. Without those, you're not in a relationship. You're in a cycle where you're doing all the emotional heavy lifting, and they're doing the bare minimum. And let's be honest, part of why we respond to inconsistency is because it keeps us hooked. One day they're cold, the next they're warm, and that unpredictability creates a kind of emotional addiction. You start craving the high of their attention, even though it's fleeting, and in chasing that validation, you lose sight of what you actually deserve: consistent love, not occasional crumbs. The problem is, the more you accept crumbs, the more you teach yourself that it's the best you can get. It erodes your standards without you even realizing it. So what does it mean to stop rewarding inconsistency? It means you don't drop everything when someone who's been absent suddenly resurfaces. It means you pause before replying and you assess, not react. It means you stop being so eager to please someone who hasn't shown you they're invested. You shift your focus from trying to win them over to asking yourself, is this even what I want? Because sometimes the reason we feel so hurt isn't just because they're inconsistent. It's because we know we've been giving more than they ever earned. You're not cold for pulling back. You're not rude for expecting consistency. You're protecting your energy, and that's something emotionally mature people respect. Someone who genuinely cares about you won't leave you confused. They won't make you question where you stand. They'll show up consistently, not perfectly, but reliably, because that's what real connection looks like. But the moment you stop responding the same way to their inconsistent effort, everything shifts. They either rise to meet your standard or they fall away, and both outcomes are a win. Because you're no longer wasting your time on someone who only half shows up. You're no longer stretching yourself thin trying to maintain a connection that was never solid to begin with. You're taking your power back, not through anger or confrontation, but by simply no longer feeding what doesn't feed you. People learn how to treat you based on what you continue to accept. So if someone is inconsistent, don't reward it with consistency on your part. Let your absence speak. Let your silence be the mirror. Because when someone feels the shift, when they realize they no longer get the same version of you without effort, they're forced to either show up right or step aside. And either way, you move forward with clarity, strength, and self-respect intact. When someone truly values you, they don't leave you confused. It's that simple. Consistency isn't complicated. Effort isn't vague. When a man sees your worth, he doesn't play hot and cold, doesn't keep you guessing, doesn't only show up when it's convenient. Instead, he shows it in the way he communicates, in how he prioritizes your time, and in how clearly he makes his intentions known. The truth is, too many people get stuck waiting on someone's potential instead of paying attention to their patterns. Words can be beautiful and persuasive, but they mean nothing if the actions don't align. If you're constantly wondering where you stand, asking yourself why the energy feels off, or rereading texts to decode mixed signals, that's already your answer. That uncertainty you feel isn't drama. It's your intuition picking up on a lack of emotional safety. And emotional safety comes from clarity. You should never feel like you're auditioning for a role in someone's life that they haven't even offered you. If you find yourself constantly trying to prove your value, it's not a relationship, it's a competition you never agreed to be in. The problem is, we often hear what we want to hear and ignore what's right in front of us. Maybe he says things like, "I'm just not ready right now," or "I really like you, but I'm not sure what I want." And instead of taking those words as the red flag they are, we cling to the hope that he'll change. That if we're just a bit more patient, more understanding, more everything, he'll suddenly wake up and realize what he has. But that's not how it works. When someone wants you, you don't have to perform, you just have to be. Confusion thrives when clarity is avoided, and the harsh truth is, some people keep you in the gray area on purpose. They like the benefits of your presence without the responsibility of commitment. They give you just enough to keep you emotionally invested, but not enough to give you peace. That's not love, that's manipulation. You are not hard to love, and the right person won't treat you like you're a burden just for wanting to know where you stand. Someone who genuinely respects you will communicate. Even if they're not in the same place emotionally, they'll be honest about it, and they won't string you along. They'll want you to have clarity so you can make empowered decisions for yourself. That's what real maturity looks like. But if you're left in the dark, if your questions are met with deflection or guilt, tripping, it's time to take a step back and reassess what you're actually getting out of this connection. Stop giving endless chances to someone who can't even give you clarity. Stop explaining your worth to someone who acts confused about it. It's not your job to convince someone to value you. That value should be obvious to the right person from the start, not something they figure out once you've pulled away or they see you moving on. Don't wait for the silence to become unbearable before you decide to listen to it. You deserve peace, not uncertainty. You deserve a relationship where you can relax into love, not walk on eggshells wondering if you're too much or not enough. If clarity isn't being offered, create your own by choosing to stop tolerating the gray area. Because peace comes when you stop chasing answers from someone who's already shown you, through their actions, that you're not their priority. And the moment you stop settling for confusion is the moment you make room for real, grounded, mutual love. Silence isn't punishment, it's power. It's the moment you stop trying to convince someone of your worth and instead let your absence do the talking. When someone consistently disrespects your time, gives you mixed signals, or disappears without explanation, the urge to confront, chase, or seek closure can feel overwhelming. But the truth is, your power doesn't come from the words you throw at someone who isn't listening. It comes from what you withhold. Silence, when used with intention, is one of the most dignified responses you can give to being undervalued. In the heat of emotional frustration, it's natural to want to speak your mind, to lay everything out, to try and make them understand how they've hurt you. But if they've already shown that they don't care enough to show up consistently, why give them the gift of your explanation? That long message you're drafting, that emotional outburst you're rehearsing, that one last attempt to make them get it, none of it will land if they're not emotionally available or willing to respect you. Silence speaks louder because it removes the performance. It says, "I no longer owe you my voice." People often mistake silence for weakness or assume you're waiting for them to come back, but real silence, the kind that's rooted in self-respect, is not about waiting. It's about reclaiming. It's about shifting your energy inward instead of wasting it on someone who only notices your presence when it starts to disappear. When you go silent, not to manipulate, but to protect your peace, it forces people to sit with their own actions. It removes the emotional crutch they relied on, your constant reassurance, your availability, your forgiveness, and places the spotlight directly on their behavior. The thing is, someone who's used to your attention will feel your silence. Not immediately, maybe, but over time, the absence of your effort, your presence, your love, it becomes noticeable. And what you start to realize is that you never needed to scream to be heard. You just needed to stop speaking to the wrong person. Silence isn't passive. It's a choice. It's saying, I could explain, but I won't. I could fight, but I choose peace. It's letting go of the need to control the narrative and trusting that walking away with your dignity intact is more powerful than any confrontation. Silence also creates space for clarity, for healing, for perspective. It allows you to step back and assess the situation without being emotionally tangled in the moment. It helps you see patterns you might have ignored. The more you stay quiet, the more your intuition gets louder. And eventually, you stop obsessing over what they think, what they'll do, or whether they'll come back. You start to focus on yourself, your growth, your goals, your emotional well-being, and let's be clear, silence doesn't mean emotional suppression. It doesn't mean you're numb or pretending not to care. It means you're choosing not to engage with someone who's proven they don't deserve access to your vulnerability. You're protecting your energy from being drained by conversations that go nowhere. You're refusing to play the game of chasing someone who should have appreciated you from the start. The right people don't need to be shouted at to understand your value. They feel it in your presence, and they feel it even more in your absence. So, the next time someone pulls away, disrespects you, or takes you for granted, don't beg, don't chase. Don't fight for clarity from someone who gave you confusion. Let your silence be your boundary. Let it speak volumes. Because in that quiet space, your worth becomes undeniable, not just to them, but most importantly, to yourself. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you tolerate. That's why your standards aren't just ideals. They're filters. They're the boundaries that tell people how to treat you. When you accept behavior that doesn't align with your values, whether it's emotional unavailability, inconsistency, or disrespect, you're essentially lowering the bar and telling the other person, this is okay. And the more you accept, the more you condition yourself to believe that this is just how love works. That love is hard, messy, confusing, or something you have to earn by being enough. But love isn't meant to feel like a constant negotiation of your worth. Your standards are not about being picky or demanding. They're about alignment. They're about clarity on what kind of relationship you're willing to invest in and what kind you're not. The problem is, when someone treats you like an option, your self-esteem takes a hit. You start questioning your own standards. You wonder if you're asking for too much. You begin to think that maybe this is the best you're going to get. And that's a dangerous place to be in, because that's how people end up staying in situations that drain them for months or even years. When you prioritize someone who keeps you in limbo, you're sending a message that they don't have to rise to meet your needs. You're showing them that your boundaries are flexible when emotions are involved. And let's be honest, if someone's getting all the benefits of your love, loyalty, time, and attention without having to show up consistently, they have no incentive to change. Why would they when you're rewarding their bare minimum with your maximum? Raising your standards doesn't mean building walls. It means building doors that only open for the right kind of energy. It's not about making someone chase you or playing hard to get. It's about deciding that your peace is more important than someone's potential. It's about being willing to walk away even when it hurts, because you trust that settling will cost you more in the long run than loneliness ever will. And that's hard, especially when you care about someone, especially when you've built a story in your mind about what it could be if they just stepped up. But here's the truth. If you keep lowering your standards to accommodate someone else's lack of effort, you're not loving them. You're abandoning yourself. Real love starts with self-respect, And self-respect means being willing to lose people who aren't capable of loving you the way you deserve to be loved. It's not easy. It requires courage. It requires patience. It requires you to sit in the discomfort of letting go of someone who feels familiar, even if they're not healthy. The moment you raise your standards, things will shift. Some people will leave. Others won't like the new boundaries. But that's the point. Your standards are meant to repel the wrong people and attract the right ones. They're a form of self-protection and self-expression. They say, I know my value and I won't settle for less. Not because you're entitled, but because you're finally choosing to live in alignment with your worth. And the beautiful thing is, the more you honor your standards, the more natural it becomes. You stop chasing clarity from people who avoid giving it. You stop begging for attention. You stop explaining why you deserve more. You just become the person who only entertains what feels good, real, and respectful. And that's when the game changes, because the moment you raise your standards is the moment you start attracting people who meet them without being asked. Love should never feel like emotional labor that leaves you empty. When you constantly pour your energy into someone who gives you very little in return, you start living on emotional leftovers, just enough to keep you hoping, but never enough to feel secure or fulfilled. The hard truth is this: your time, your presence, your affection, they're valuable. And if you keep giving those things to someone who doesn't reciprocate, you're not just wasting energy, you're reinforcing a cycle where you're more focused on keeping the connection alive than evaluating whether it's even worth it. Giving your energy to what gives back is about alignment. It's about asking, does this connection make me feel seen, respected, and emotionally safe? If the answer is no, then why are you still investing so much of yourself? It's not about being selfish or withholding love. It's about being intentional. Energy is a limited resource. Every time you text first, make the plans, forgive the broken promises, or rationalize their lack of effort, you're depleting your own emotional reserves. And over time, that leaves you burned out, anxious, and wondering why you always end up feeling unfulfilled. We often confuse giving more with being loving, but there's a difference between giving from overflow and giving from emptiness. One comes from self-worth, the other from fear. When you give from a place of wholeness, you're not afraid to set boundaries. You're not afraid to say, this isn't enough for me. But when you give from a place of insecurity or attachment, you ignore red flags. You convince yourself that if you just hold on a little longer, if you just love a little harder, things will change. That kind of giving becomes a transaction. You're giving with the unspoken hope of finally getting something back. And when you don't, it hurts twice as much. Someone who values you won't let you carry the entire emotional load. They won't wait for you to initiate every conversation or fix every problem. They'll show up, not just when it's easy, but when it matters. When you're tired, when you need support, when you just want someone to meet you halfway, you shouldn't have to ask for consistency or beg for clarity. Those things should be the baseline in a healthy connection. The shift happens when you start giving your energy to people and things that return it. When you stop chasing and start observing who naturally reciprocates, you begin to feel lighter, more empowered. You no longer feel like you're trying to earn love or prove your worth. Instead, you attract relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and shared effort. You start choosing peace over potential, consistency over chemistry, emotional safety over excitement that leads to nowhere. You can't heal in a place that keeps wounding you. No matter how strong your feelings are, if the connection is draining you, it's not love. It's attachment. And attachment without reciprocity becomes suffering. When you invest in what doesn't invest in you, you lose twice. Once in the relationship, and again in your relationship with yourself. But when you pull back and redirect that energy toward your passions, your goals, your growth, you rebuild the most important relationship in your life, the one you have with yourself. Giving your energy to what gives back doesn't just change who you attract, it changes how you see yourself. You begin to understand that your worth was never tied to how much someone else could love you. It was always about how well you could love yourself. And from that place of clarity and strength, you stop settling for emotional breadcrumbs and start expecting and accepting only full meals. In the end, your energy is your currency, and you get to choose where and with whom you spend it. If someone treats you like an option, shows up inconsistently, or leaves you doing all the emotional work, it's time to stop making them a priority. Real love doesn't drain you, it meets you, holds you, and gives back. When you stop chasing what depletes you and start honoring your standards, everything changes. You gain clarity, confidence, and peace. You attract better. And most importantly, you remind yourself that you were never too much. You were just giving too much to someone who wasn't ready for your value. Let that be the moment you reclaim your power and never settle for less again.